I've talked a lot recently about the four core performance skills. What if you're an absolute beginner as a student? Or what if you're teaching an absolute beginner? How long do you have to wait to learn these skills? Or could you get started right away? Let's chat about that today. Hello and welcome to the Musician Toolkit episode number 93. My name is David Lane and it is great to be with you once again. So everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and one of my biggest weaknesses, especially when it comes to content creation, such as podcasting, is estimating how long something is going to be before I have actually recorded it. I'm actually pretty bad about that, but I'm hoping to get better just because of how I would like this podcast to proceed going forward. So this is episode number 93. Episode 99 is going to be where I kind of talk about the future of the podcast and just what I'd like to do going forward. And I can tell you that one of two things is going to happen going forward for sure. And I'm going to be kind of testing that out over a few episodes. So not counting the episodes that I have with guests, because I really don't want to put any specific parameters on how long an episode should be. But I'm either going to be recording and releasing episodes less frequently, or I'm going to make myself get more to the point and give some shorter episodes that will continue every week. So I'm going to kind of test. This is a test for me to improve my weakness to make it at least closer to a strength so that I can kind of determine what is reasonable. And I'll get more into that in episode 99, what's prompting that. But it's just, I find that I have at the moment less time to devote to this podcast. And I know one way that would make these episodes shorter is if I get to the point even faster. So I'm going to go ahead and discontinue this small talk and tell you about today's episode. So the four core performance skills, if you haven't listened to the previous series, there's 5 parts to that series that I believe goes from episode 84 through 88. Definitely you should check those out. But in essence, those four core performance skills, these are the skills that if you will take time to learn them, to do them well, you will be a well-rounded performer who can handle any specific situation. And those skills are sight reading, playing by ear, transposing, and improvising. So if you're just getting started, and I mean literally, like if you just decided I'm going to start learning an instrument now, or if you are a music teacher and you have a student and you're wanting to start teaching these skills and you're wondering, do I have to wait till they get to a certain point or can I start right away? And the answer is twofold. Yes, you can start right away. And two, you should start right away. Now, before I elaborate on that, I need to be forthcoming that something I try to do on this podcast and don't always succeed is I try to give suggestions that you can easily apply to any instrument that isn't just the piano. I don't always succeed because piano is my instrument, it's the instrument that I understand the best. And that's why I feel like I need to say for this episode, I am going to be focusing on piano because I'm going to be talking as a teacher, and I just really can't imagine how like you would apply this if you're teaching woodwinds, brass, or strings. But I certainly know that you can. So I hope that you'll hear these piano specific instructions if you play another instrument or teach another instrument and are able to translate that into what makes sense for your instrument. Because I think everything that I say can be done, but you'll have to modify it, maybe more than slightly in some cases, but these can all be accomplished on no matter what your instrument is. So, yes, all four of these skills should be taught early and they can be taught on day one. Now, something that I have done for much of my teaching career that I'm not proud of is that I've relied too much on method books. Now, I have never even once just kind of quoted a method book as being like the gospel of anything. I am very often saying, well, here's what this book is saying, but I maybe disagree with this, or I would actually approach it like this. So I've never just like opened up a method book and said, here's what to learn, and just read what was there and demonstrated it. I've always kind of modified it as I went, but and I still do that probably more than ever. But the big problem, the big thing that I wish I hadn't always done, especially with younger beginners, but even with adults, is just on day one, open up the method book and we just start reading and we just start going from there. I now think it's imperative that you have a minimum of a few weeks, if not a couple of months, before you ever open a book, just to explore some basic skills and specifically these four core performance skills. Because I think if you develop these skills as much as you can without doing anything out of a method book, when you finally do go to a method book, you're going to breeze through probably the first third to first half of that book because you're going to find that there's very little new material that you have to really focus on. Probably mostly going to be in terms of how notes look. And by the way, when it's time to learn to read music, it's so much easier if that's really all that you have to do at that point. If you're not still trying to learn how to find these notes on your instrument. Now, I'm going to offer some suggestions that I would do for young beginners, and you may want to adjust this for adolescent beginners and for adult beginners. So the first core performance skill is sight reading. Now, how do you teach sight reading without opening a book and talking about notes? Well, this is a common misunderstanding about sight reading. We think that sight reading has everything to do with just keeping your eyes on the sheet music and following along, but it has just as much as being fluent with what your hands are doing on your instrument while not actually looking at your hands. So the biggest thing that you can do before you start trying to look at sheet music and play along is to be very comfortable at playing a variety of skills on your instrument without actually watching your hands. So the top prerequisite, if you're a pianist, for example, is learning your keys. Now, you may be the type of teacher that says, I don't want to get to the white keys too soon. Well, that's fine. Really learn your groups of three and group of two black keys really well to the point to where you can find a group of three or two and know that you're there without looking. You just randomly place your hand on the piano, you feel around, and you're able to adequately find the G flat, A flat, B flat, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, or the C sharp, D sharp slash D flat, E flat. I personally don't linger on that very long. I like to go ahead and get to the white keys. So I like to do, first of all, make sure that we are really good, that you can start on any key and that you can go through all of your seven letters of the musical alphabet going up, going down. As a pianist, that you know them as the C, D, E, and the F, G, A, B groups going up and down. And then once we're doing well on that, I like to do a name that key game. First of all, like I'll play a key and have them name it. Okay. But then for the purposes of sight reading, I will call out a letter. I will point to, I'll say low on the piano, the letter G. And I don't want them to look. I want them to just place their hand somewhere on the piano. Don't play any keys yet till you're sure of the right one and feel around. And you know that G is in the three black key groups. It's F, G, A, B. So find F, G, A, B and then play the G. And then I might take the right hand. We'll go up here and we'll find E. So we know that E is part of the two black key group. We have C, D, E. So find those keys and then play the E. Again, you find them without looking and then you play them. And you keep practicing this till you get pretty quick at it. Now, if the child is young enough and you want to start doing this, I'm not talking about playing by ear yet, but this is a nice form of ear training. Have them play a key and see if they can guess what it is by the way it sounds. And maybe what you might want to do if you're doing that is stay in the same part of the piano. So like just barely move down, barely move up. Because if you're just getting started, even if you have a very good ear, it can be kind of hard to tell if you're going from the lowest octave of the piano to the highest octave of the piano. The timbre is so different. You might be coaching or bringing out the potential of perfect pitch, but at the very least, you're training relative pitch early on. And I do believe that he not just playing by ear training, a strong sense of what you're doing, that will help quite a bit on your sight reading, and of course, transposing and improvisation as well. Another thing that you can also do is to take like your second, third, and fourth fingers. If you play any other instrument, you probably call it one, two, three. But again, thinking about the piano, place it on something like C, D, E, three keys in a row, and then find where your four is. So if you're going C, D, E, put your two where the four is. So like jump so that now the two is on E, and you go E, F, G. And now your four landed on G. Move it so that your two goes to G. And you go G, A, B. You could even back this up and you could put your two where your three was. So two, three, four, C, D, E, put your two on D. Two, three, four is D, E, F. Now put your two on E. So then you can expand this to where you go C, D, E, and then the next key is F. That's where your two goes, F, G, A. And then the next one is B. That's where your pinky can find that. You jump your two to there and go B, C, D. And then try skipping a key or more. So C, D, E. Here's where F is. Skip it. Jump to G. G, A, B. C is next. Skip it. Go to D, E, F. Do that with the right hand and the left hand. On all of these exercises, it is important that you don't watch your hands. So eyes closed, or if it's permissible, blindfold, and always say the letters out loud. Obviously, you can't do that if you're playing a woodwind or a brass instrument, but as much as you can, let's get the association of this is the key I'm playing. I'm finding my way around to it. I'm not looking. Now I'm going to talk about playing by ear next. There is one exercise variation of that you can bring back to work on sight reading. But now let's talk about playing by ear. I think the first thing that you should do is to practice matching rhythm. So if you're the teacher, play just a simple rhythm, and then you could make it, longer, you can make it more complicated, but just one note, one key, play that rhythm, and then maybe go back and forth between two different keys and then between three different keys and get to where the student can really practice matching patterns, but focusing on the rhythm and then focusing on up and down with notes. The next thing is that you can teach simple songs by rote. So they have to pay attention by watching you and by listening. Songs like Hot Cross Buns, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Old MacDonald, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Some of these use more notes than others, but again, playing around and just here's a phrase, play the phrase and keep at it until the student can play it back correctly several times. So now when you're in this stage, if your focus is on playing by ear, watch your hands. This is something that I've really found that when people struggle with either playing by ear or with memorization, it's because they actually habitually don't watch their hands. However, when you want to take this back to sight reading and you're working on these tunes that you're learning, like Hot Cross Buns and so on, you should practice playing them again with your eyes closed or just somehow not watching your hands as you play. Have your eyes go anywhere else, or again, have them closed. Because to sight read well, you need to have your eyes on the sheet music, and that means you cannot be watching your hands. And of course, the other thing that you can do as a teacher is just regularly play a variety of phrases, make them more complicated, make them longer, and just keep working to have your student play them back. Now, if you want them not to watch what you're doing and just listen, you can pre-record it in advance and just play it from your phone or from your computer, and then have them play back what you hear. You know, make sure that you know what it is, that you transcribed it, or that you're accomplished enough to remember what it is that you played, so that you can do a good job with mentoring this particular step. So that's a lot of things that you can do to get started with sight reading or playing by ear, that really at any level, even before you actually even reading any music or doing anything like that. So it's a lot of different exercises. When it comes to transposing and improvising, the steps are very, very simple. I have two steps for transposing. The first is to learn, maybe start with two, then three, and then four, maybe up to 5 note patterns that you are able to use white keys and black keys and move all across your instrument. So a common example is a tetrachord. It's 4 letters in a row, whole step, half step. So you may need to explore half steps and whole steps as a prerequisite just to understand the difference. But for example, if you go C, D, E, F, that's C, go up a whole step to D, go up a whole step to E, so 2 whole steps, and then E goes up a half step to F. So you play a letter, whole step, half step. So if you started on D, you would go to E, but then F is only a half step away. You have to make it F sharp, and then a half step will take you back to G. So exploring that, and again, you can watch your hands do that. You can try it without looking. I think if you want to become really good at playing by ear and you want to become really good at sight reading, you should spend an equal amount of time watching your hands intensely and then doing the same exercise without looking. So learning patterns like tetrachords is really a good first step, and you may need to work on whole steps and half steps first. And then the other thing that you can do is take all of those tunes that you're learning, like Hot Cross Buns, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Old MacDonald, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Jingle Bells, anything that's very simple. But specifically the first two, because Hot Cross Buns, and depending on how you sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, it's possible to do that on just 3 keys. And those 3 keys on the piano are the 3 black key group, your F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and your G flat, A flat, B flat. Well, those can be played on C, D, E, F, G, A, and G, A, B. And if you're so inclined, have your student sing a number to it. So, for example, Mary Had a Little Lamb might be 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. And then when they're ready, have them incorporate that onto combinations that are mixing white keys and black keys that have naturals and sharps or naturals and flats. So when it comes to practicing improvising, it's really about just building on levels, but this is really the simplest thing. Start as a teacher with very restrictive prompts. So for example, you might say we're only going to play on the 3 black key group, the G flat, A flat, B flat. And just play 5 notes on those keys. So just a 5 note pattern, but using only those 3 keys. And then have them play it again. And then have them play that 5 note pattern, but add 2 more to it. So make it a 7 note pattern. And then go back to that 5 note pattern again. So that's just one example of a series of prompts that anybody on any level can follow and right away know that they are making up their own music. And you can make that more advanced and include more keys as they get more comfortable. So again, trying to keep it short and sweet, that is how you can get started with the 4 core performance skills as an absolute beginner, or how you can teach that to an absolute beginner. Now, if this was helpful and you would like any similar episodes in the future of where I look at some different levels. So like what about what can we do after you've started to learn notes on the staff? What can we do after you're starting to feel pretty fluent in your main clef or in both treble and bass clef if you play both of those? Let me know if that's something that you'd like to be able to do. You can do that with your own voice at speakpipe.com/musician toolkit or by going to my website at davidlanemusic.com and leaving me a message in the contact form on that homepage. So speaking of speakpipe.com, I was very honored to get this feedback this week, and because it was left anonymous, and I couldn't reply to this person in any other way. I do want to go ahead and share the voice message that they left. So this is in regards way back on to episode 10, where I talked about what good practice actually looks like.
Hello, Mr. Lane. I'm responding to episode 10, what good practice actually looks like. I'm a brand new piano student. I've only been playing for about a week now, and I've been listening to your podcast, trying to gain more knowledge. My original plan was to complete a lesson every single day in the Alfred's Premier Piano Express book, but I soon found out that I could complete a lesson, sure, but it wasn't quality practice. I was playing it, but it wasn't actually practicing it, as you put it. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that episode because it totally revamped the way I practice. Instead of completing a lesson every day, I might have to split up each lesson into multiple days and get competent at each song before I move on. And so to just take it measure by measure, really learn it. Don't just play it quickly. Actually learn it and become competent. And this might slow my progress down in how fast I can finish the book per se, but it will actually speed up the amount of time that I actually become competent.
Well, to the anonymous person who left that, thank you so much. And I'm glad that you found that episode helpful. Talking about what practice actually looks like and how to get better is something that is definitely one of my passions. And I did, in case you missed it, I made a YouTube video about this very thing on my channel. It's called What Good Practice Actually Looks Like. And thus far, it has been easily the most popular video I've posted to my channel so far. So it's really, I think it covers kind of the same things, but some more visual aids. So you may want to go check that out as well. But it wasn't too long ago that I re-listened to what I said on that podcast just to kind of see where things are. And I think that and the video both talk about the same things pretty much. So again, thank you so much for that feedback. Also, speaking of feedback, it had been a while since I had gotten a new review that I could share on Apple Podcasts. And I just want to go ahead and share this one. It's from a listener in Germany, again on Apple Podcasts. It says, great guests, great information. I wish I had discovered this podcast sooner. Thank you for your work, David. So thank you for that review. So if you feel so inclined, if you want to leave me a voice message yourself, you can do that at speakpipe.com/musician toolkit. Or if you'd like to leave a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that is much appreciated. If you found this episode helpful, please share. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. And please click the like on this and subscribe if you're not already. That is going to wrap up today's episode, but I'll be back with you again next week.